our software right now, it's a collections and servicing software. So it's really focused on, collections, past due accounts, optimizing the collection strategy, helping a lender collect more money every month from their past due accounts with fewer staff. So we're using a lot of model building and risk management techniques are built into the software to help optimize that effort of collecting, your past due loans. And so you'll see some things that we do. We have risk grades in our software. So every past due account has a grade, A, B, C, D, or E. And the A accounts are the ones that have the highest risk. Not only are they high likelihood of default, but they're also carrying very high balances. So it's double trouble if you're an A account. You're they're very risky to the lender. Now on the other side of the equation, if you're an E, you're very low risk, you're low likelihood of default, and you have a low balance. So, those are the ones you can almost just ignore because, they're probably going to self-cure. The balances are low anyways, and you can almost ignore them. And somewhere in between, you've got, a total of 5 levels there of grades, A, B, C, D, E, and you can come up with these different strategies for the different grades. And
Yep.
you'll see, I'm going to show it to you here as I share my screen. All right, so let's go into Lendisoft. This is our LMS, loan management software. And where we're at right now is just the work queue. So the client that I'm in is just a fictitious client. We've got employees that are collectors working in different departments. We're just using celebrities, so you're going to see some celebrity names as some of the agents in this client. Okay, and so we're in the work queue. So I think I'll start by just showing you some of the work screens, like if you were a collector, and you'll see some of the experience that the collector has. But I also want to get into some of the behind the scenes stuff where I'm showing you more of what the manager would do when they're creating campaigns. We're omni-channel as well, so we support phone calling, emailing, texting, and all within the same controlled interface. So if the system sends out a text message in the morning and the client responds to that text message and it turns into a right party contact, if that customer was also scheduled for the afternoon or the evening to get contacted, well, we'll cancel those subsequent communications as a matter of compliance, because there's certain rules where you can't do more than X number of contacts in a day or in a week, depending on if you've had a right party contact and things of that nature. So being that we're omni-channel under one controller, we have some great advantages there that we're able to be compliant in that way, throughout the day, throughout the weeks, throughout the months. And so that's is very helpful to have these things. If you're trying to manage these different communication channels under different systems, it's very difficult to pull that off. So
it looks like you can dial directly from your platform as well. Is that
yeah. We're doing an integration right now with a phone service provider called Allo Global. They were requested by this client that we're onboarding right now. So we're doing an integration. There is a phone widget up here at the top, and this is for click to dial phone communication. So essentially, you can make a phone call. I'm not actually in a loan yet, but I'm in the work queue. If I go into a loan, let's just click on one and let's go into a loan. And if I was to click on one of the phone numbers, it will pop up the phone widget, paste the phone number in here, and I could just one click to make a phone call. So click to dial. Aside from just click to dial function, we also have auto dialer in our integration with them. So every morning, this client has about a dozen dialer campaigns that they run. And so every morning we're sending them the lists of accounts that meet the criteria for those campaigns. And so it's an exciting thing for us to be doing our first voice over IP integration with a phone service provider.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
great.
and so it's pretty cool that we'll be going live on that in the coming weeks here as we go live with this client. There's also text messaging. In the phone, we have the phone widget, we have the texting widget, and we have an integration with two text message service providers. One of them is called Solutions by Text, or SBT. And we've been integrated with them for over a year. We have another integration that we've completed more recently with another texting provider called TextMax Pro. And but both of them work through the same texting interface. So it's all integrated within Lendisoft. If you're a collector, you're just one click away from instituting a text. You're one click away from click to dial. And again, we also have auto dialer functionality as well. All right, so let's see. Let's get a kind of a lay of the land here, and you'll start seeing some differentiation with us. I don't know if you've seen other LMS systems, sort of what the UI looks like. We have light mode and dark mode. We're in dark mode right now, which is my preference. A lot of normal kind of features that you would expect if you're a collector. You can add a note to the system. Let's say you just ended a call and you wanted to add a note. You had an outbound call. It was the right party contact. Oops, I'm sorry. Let's see. I think it's off of my screen. Okay, let's say left a voicemail. Here's the phone number that I called. I added a note. You can also enter a promise to pay. If you took a promise to pay, you submit the note, and it'll create a marker on this activity chart that just shows up here at the left. So this is a 30-day communication activity chart. All forms of communication will create little icons on the landscape here. And so you can see what time of the day the activity happened is on the y-axis, and then which day over the last 30 days is on the x-axis. This is a test client, so nobody's working these accounts, so you're not really seeing anything here other than the new one that I just added right now.
Yeah, okay.
All right. There's a couple of risk tools. For example, this half a donut one is called the odds of roll. So behind the scenes, we're running machine learning models that are predicting the likelihood of roll. So that means if they're more likely not to make a payment this month, this little yellow needle is going to be pointing more toward the right. But if they're more likely that they probably will make a payment this month, well, then the needle will move to the left. If maybe I'll just go next and I'll go look at a different account. And you'll see on this one, the needle moved pretty far to the right because this account has about a 70% likelihood that they're not going to make a payment this month. You may or may not want to show this to the collector. You might only want to show this chart to the manager or the maybe somebody at a higher level. But you might decide some shops will actually want to show this to the collector as well. But it's pretty handy if you're in a situation where you're deciding, should I repo the car or should I not? Should I keep working on this account a little longer? And this is sort of a statistical aid where you might get some expert advice from the statistics. It'll say, hey, this account's a problem account. It looks like it's very difficult to collect on this account according to the models. So this could help support you in your decision whether you want to, do the repo or not right now. Other similar kind of charts, they work similarly on the left-hand side. Here's the risk grade I was telling you about, the A, B, C, D, or E. On this account, it looks like it's an E. The way we decide if it's an A, B, C, D, or E is based on the net balance at risk. So we have a different set of scorecards that are predicting the likelihood of default, which in this little chart with the blue dots and the yellow dot, the left-hand axis or the y-axis is the odds of default. So this account is the yellow dot. It looks like they have a 36.8% likelihood of default.
Wow.
And so that's relatively high.
Yeah.
The blue dots are all of the other accounts in the portfolio. So this guy, actually, I just ended up on the worst account with the highest odds of default compared to all of the loans in this portfolio. Now, it's not only based on odds of default, it's also based on the current balance. So this account currently has a balance of a net balance actually of negative $977. So they're in the negative realm on the balance, net balance. And what that means is because the car might be worth, say, $4,000, but the auction value on the car might be $5,000. So the net value on that car is negative 1,000 in that particular case. So we're predicting not only likelihood of default, but we're also factoring in what the net value is on the collateral. We put that all together into one statistic called net balance at risk. And in this example, it ends up being negative $359 because the true exposure to risk was negative 977, but there's only about a 1/3 odds that it's going to default anyway. And so that kind of softens it, it waters it down to a $359 severity of risk on this loan. It's so low, in fact, it's negative, which is why it's an E risk, because overall, this account is not very troublesome, not very worrisome for the lender. They're in a good position on this one. Another chart we have is this loan to value chart, LTV chart. You get two lines, you get a red line and you get a blue line. The red line is the collateral value over time. So you can actually see when the loan was originated, the collateral value was like $13,000. But as time went on, the collateral value has dropped on this loan. We're 3 years into this active loan. Right now, the car's only worth, say, $4,900. The blue line is the balance on the principal balance on the loan at the same time. So it's interesting where you can see where your LTV is greater than 100% and you're upside down over part of the loan's term. But then in other areas of the term, we're actually right side up. And in this case, so the LTV chart is another way of kind of looking at the future and saying, well, right now, maybe I'm right here, but in the future, it looks like I'm going to get into a better situation because my LTV is going to be lower. And that might help me decide, should I repo the car or should I not? So the LTV chart is very helpful in that way. I believe we're the only LMS that gives you these considerations that's in the market, these risk management features that are predicting the future, giving you some help from a risk perspective to make, decisions, that affect, the profitability of your company.
Yes, of course.
So those are some things. There's actually a lot of things, and we have limited time. But some of the main features that I'm showing you, I'll just kind of go through them fairly quick.
Okay.
Applicant information is all with the data entry for the name and the address and things like that. And then the co-applicant is underneath. We have other screens, co-signer. If you have a co-signer on a loan that's separate from the applicant and co-applicant, we have screens for co-signer and co-signer 2. We even have a screen for recipient. Sometimes in the auto loan world, we have straw purchases where the person that the car is for, excuse me, is not even the person who's on the loan. And then you discover this later on. So we have something called recipient where you can notate the information about who the loan who the vehicle is for if it's a car loan.
I'm sure that's common.
Yeah, and it's another thing that we know is common, but most software does not give you a place to
Yeah.
store information about the recipient for straw purchase.
Okay.
References, we have screens for personal references that helps you when you're skip tracing or in certain circumstances. Transactions are where all the payment transactions show up. So there's two different kinds. There's cash transactions, and then there's non-cash. Cash transactions, they don't mean it's green cash. It just means this was money, like payments were made, money changed hands. And here's a history of all the payments that were made on this loan. You can click on any one of these codes, payment codes, and it expands, and you can see the detail of how the payment was allocated. So you'll see the waterfall breakdown of the principal and the interest, how much went to principal, how much went to interest, late fees and such, paid to date. You see a before and after on all the waterfall components on this particular transaction. And so you'll see the before and then the after balance. You can open up multiples at the same time. Sometimes you're trying to figure out something about a payment history, and you can just expand these or shrink these as you go. So all the payment transactions happen automatically. Most of the payment activity goes through a payments provider like yourself. And so we're fully integrated. So as payments happen, they just show up here automatically. As payments get reversed, they can be reversed automatically as well. And again, all of that can be handled during the payment integration. Non-cash records are for kind of like things like, here's the daily interest accruals. So if it's a simple interest loan, they have, during our nightly process, we're accruing interest every night for 1 day's, they call it the per diem. And every day, so you get the history here. It looks like on this loan, they actually had a late fee as well. And you can expand these as well and see the detail as these transactions appear. Every due date, there's a due transaction that appears. And this is going to add to the total amount due by one payment amount. And so you get a record of that here in the transaction history. Here's another late fee, and you see all the interest transactions that happen every night during the nightly process. We also have a forecasted payment view that at any given time, an agent can come here, and if a customer ever says, hey, how many more payments do I have on this loan? Like, when am I going to finally be paid off? They can come here to the forecasted payment. And what this does is it predicts a true forecasted remaining term. So it takes their current balance, and it assumes if you come current, like if they're past due right now, they can tell the customer, if you come current right now, I can tell that you have 7 more payments to go to get the principal balance down to 0 if you make your payments on time going forward. And so this is like an amortization that's playing out in live time, predicting exactly how many more payments it'll take to get you to the principal balance of 0.
Let's say the customer says yes. Do you guys then input their new form of payment within your same platform?
So I'll show you. We have a button for take payment, and we can either input a payment manually, or we can go to the payment portal. So, for example, with Repay and with Pay Near Me, they both have a consumer payment portal where the customer can log in there, and it's white labeled with the branding. So it looks like it's the lender. It's got their logo and such. And they can schedule, their payments out on that consumer payment portal. So in this, I can't really show that to you in this demo,
That's fine.
but
Yeah.
that's where you would schedule. You go to the consumer portal, and you can either the customer can go there and schedule their future payments as a self-service, or the agent has a back end into the merchant portal, and then they can actually, during a live call, they can actually schedule those during the call on the customer's behalf. And
Okay.
so and I guess I'll just ask you, so you guys are a payment service provider. Do you guys have a consumer portal or something like that where the customer can go and make payments or schedule payments?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like a payment link. So ours, you can either text or you give them like a special URL they can go to.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they'll go ahead and make
They
the
go
payment.
into the portal. Yeah,
And then it
exactly.
should like API back into the portal, so then it can update on your platform.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, that's how that works.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see. We also have some other tools. You can process an extension. You can adjust balances. You can even re-amortize the whole loan if you were going to do change the terms of the loan to a lower APR or a different term or anything. So you can do a loan re-amortization, change the due date. You can manually charge off a loan, and there's a couple other actions that you can do here. So that's the transactions.
So just real quick, so let's say, for example, they want to extend the loan. You click on that and it gives a prediction, for example.
I'll show you.
Okay.
We'll click on process extension.
Yeah.
What you're going to get is a little pop-up window, and it's going to tell you, okay, well, how many extensions are we granting right now? Just one payment? In this case, the client is authorized to do up to two all at once. When we're onboarding a client in our standard settings, there's an area where you can actually do all the setup for this. And this one says for this portfolio, they can only do one or two at a time. So let's say I just do one. And so it's telling me, okay, I'm going to do one extension. I'm going to process one payment extension. It tells me my remaining is 6. So apparently this lender is set up where they could do a total of 7 over the life of the loan. Now, here's some before and after. The due date is going to, right now it's November 28th. After I process this, it's going to go to December 28th. So it's going to roll the due date forward 1 month. Even though they're not taking a payment, it's going to kind of be like they did take a payment. They're basically processing an extension. The past due amount is also going to drop from 1457 down to 971. The extensions granted is going to go from 0 to 1, and the last extension date is going to go from 0 to today's date, October 24th. When I process that extension, let's just do it. It's going to create a new transaction record. First of all, it updated those balances and those dates, just like it said. But if I go to the transaction history, you're going to see a new non-cash transaction called EXT, and we can expand that one now, and we can see that we just processed an extension. The due date went. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's like a ghost payment.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? It kind of puts it on the end of the loan instead of making the payment now, but they get the benefit of reducing their delinquency and reducing their amount due by one payment amount. So it's common to do these extensions in the industry, especially during the COVID era. There was a lot of extensions being done.
All over the place.
Yeah. All right. Loan information screen gives you information about the loan. Activity notes is where you can read the history of conversations that the collector has had with the customer. And different types of entries show up here. Sometimes they're automatically entered. Like this one on the top, it says it was the agent ID was system. because this one got automatically entered. Somebody must have submitted this to repo review, and it created this history note that the account was submitted to repo review. So activity notes, documents. We also have a document reader and viewer. So for like PDF documents, when they originate a loan, they probably have a loan package with a contract and all the stipulations that were part of that. Those could be uploaded here. And you'll see them line up here on the left. This one doesn't have anything, but you click on the record, and on the right-hand side, it'll view it. You'll see what the PDF looks like on the right-hand side. So you can upload documents anytime during a loan. If you had to send a letter, like some kind of a past due letter or something like that, those would also show up here, and you'll have a history of all documents will be here, so that you can view what those emails or physical letters looked like. Okay. Asset recovery. This is more on the sort of on the charge-off side. So once the account is no longer active and it got so far past due that they charged it off, then a lot of lenders have a different team working on those accounts. And in this area, some of the lenders are still doing collection calls. So this is the deficiency collection section where they can work those accounts. If the loan goes into bankruptcy, some lenders have a special department that handles bankruptcy. So those agents would pretty much be working in this area, keeping track of information about the bankruptcy. The collateral is kind of where the repo department kind of spends their day. And you get a lot of information here about the repossession, information about impound information, police department, tow yard. If the repo was ordered, they have information here about the repo company. And if the car gets sold at auction, then we have information about the liquidation. And so that's all of this is for basically involving the asset recovery process.
Very
Additional
nice.
Products is for GAP insurance, service contracts, keeps track of all the information, and then titles is keeping track of all the information about the title, the location, if it was released, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of it on the work screens. I know we have about 15 more minutes on this, so I want to get into a little bit about some of the setup and show you a little bit more about the risk management features. Before I do that, is there any questions about, like, if you were a collector and you're just kind of in our system, the screens that I've shown you, any other questions about that?
No. Right now, it's been pretty clear what you've shown me. It's there's a lot. I mean, you could really dig into it, but what you've shown me, I mean, it's been pretty clear. I like the future forecasting you guys have on the left-hand side too, as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That's clearly our differentiation, is those forecasting things that are really meant to be management tools. And it's, I think we're the only one that has these kinds of things. And it's interesting, like when I worked at CPS, we had all these things, but they were homegrown. Like I developed them internally because we needed them. But when you look at, the LMSs in the marketplace, like Loan Pro and Nortridge and these different ones, DeFi solutions, some of the market leading platforms, they just don't have the risk management. They just give you a good place to collect the payments, and they give you queues for the collectors to work, but they're just not as really forward thinking when it comes to predictive analytics and those kinds of things. So that's what makes us different. Okay, so let's go back to some of the setup, and I just want to show you a few more things along those lines. All right, if I go into settings, we go into assignments. You can create assignment templates. You only really have to do it once, and then month after month after month, you could just leave it alone. But one thing you can do in our software is, because we have the risk grades, what you can do is you can assign different risk grades to your collectors. So here's some of the collectors in the front end collections department. We've got Adele, we got Angelina Jolie, we got Ben Affleck, Britney Spears. You see all these celebrity names in here, and these are our collectors. So in the front end collections department. Now
Okay.
let's pretend Adele and Angelina Jolie, they're our best top collectors. I want to make sure I'm only giving them A's and B's, because those are the high balance, high risk accounts. And maybe Angelina Jolie, I give her some C's accounts as well. Ben Affleck, Britney Spears, Jennifer Lawrence, they're kind of like average collectors. I only want to give them like B's, C's, and D's. And then Keanu Reeves, Shaquille O'Neal, Taylor Swift, Tom Hanks, they're brand new, still learning. I just want to give them D's and E's right now. Maybe in the future months, they can earn their way up to working the tougher accounts. But right now, this is the way I'm going to allocate my workload. I know for a fact, because I experienced this, that when we started using the risk grades back at CPS, like this, where we identify our top collectors and we give them the higher risk accounts, in the end of the month, collections improved. This sort of optimization did make a difference. Most of the other LMSs in the market don't support this kind of a thing. It's actually very difficult to achieve this kind of a thing unless it's built into your software. But we built it in to make it really easy to manage risk like this.
Yeah,
And
it's very visual. I like that.
yeah, so that's cool. So that it makes sense, and you see what we're doing there.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, this is it's hard to sit quiet. You know, I worked at Discover Card for 20 years. I worked at Amex for 4 years. I worked at Lending Club, and and some other places. There's not another platform that does that. This is just targeted collections. This is for me. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, all right, they're onto something. This is what, and I'm on calls all the time. This is the kind of technology that so many companies are they're wanting. Not only the propensity to pay built in, but this for me was such a game changer, coming from those other platforms.
yeah,
Okay. And then so like for example, Angelina Jolie, she logs in and to her platform for say her login, and she'll have all those already tied into what she needs to collect on. The
yeah.
ABCs will be in there.
Only ABCs are going to be in her queue.
Very, very nice.
That's right.
It's incredible.
Okay, so that's one thing, the assignments, and so you can create templates, assignment templates, and and you can basically assign the workload according to risk to your agents, like kind of like that. The other thing I want to show you is the campaign builder. Now you can also create campaign templates, and there's different kinds. For example, in our notification builder, you can create different notification templates, like a past due notice, or like a welcome notice. When you onboard a new loan, you want to email them a notice that's like, congratulations, welcome, whatever. Any of those types of forms that you create them in our software. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself,
Wow.
but
Yeah, and I see the campaign builder. That looks really nice.
and so then you can create rules that are going to be connected to those notices. So here's a past due notice, and I want this particular one to be sent out when they become 3 days past due. So I build a rule in the rule builder. It says days past due equals 3, and the main status description equals active. So you see how easy it is to build rules. You
Yeah.
don't have to know JavaScript. You don't have to know any coding language. Any kind of a business person can manage this and build the rules. It's super easy to do. and you connect those rules that you build to the notifications themselves. So here's some different ones that we built. We have an insurance reminder. We have a notice of intent for repo notice. We have a welcome letter, past due notices, paid in full. So you build all these notices, and then you just build these campaign rules, and then they just happen. Those notices go out at 12 noon Pacific time every day in batch. And that's, so this is for emails. You can also build different campaigns for text messages. So there's actually three kinds. There's an email campaign, there's a text campaign, or there's a third one called a calling queue campaign, which is a special kind that I'm going to show you right now.
Okay.
The calling queue campaign lets you experiment with champion challenger campaigns, which is another thing that everybody's kind of heard of, and they'd like to be able to do it, but most software doesn't accommodate it. But let me explain what this is. Let's say I'm going to build a calling queue campaign where the odd account numbers, or I'm sorry, the even account numbers, anything ending in a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8, they're going to be applied according to this strategy. If you're an A account, a B, C, D, or E, the risk grade, and then the days past due kind of work down here. And so in this campaign, it's really not going to show the accounts in the queues until they become 5 or more days past due. And that's what the letter Q means. It means show up in the calling queues for the agents when it's an A risk, B risk, C, D, E, and it's one of these days past due. But let's say I want to experiment with a more strategic kind of approach, and I want to create a challenger campaign where the on the odd account numbers, so randomly, when the account numbers end in a 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9, I want to use this approach. If it's an A risk, I want to call that account when they're 1 day past due, because I want to be most aggressive on my most difficult accounts. But the B accounts, don't put them in the queues until they're 4 or more days past due. And then the C's and the D's and the E's, and you can just click on these, and then the letter Q shows up. And you can get any kind of a staggered schedule that you want. But this is really handy when you're trying to be efficient with your staffing, because what we noticed or figured out back at CPS is when we started doing risk grades and staggering the calling queues like this, we found out that we could get the same result at the end of the month, or even a slightly better result. You can collect even more dollars, but you can do it with fewer staffing. Because you're learning which accounts you can actually totally ignore. And if you can totally ignore an E account until they're 17 days past due, you can imagine how many staffing that means you don't need to hire for. Yeah. So what we figured out, and the first time we rolled this out, and I remember this very clearly, we had because the one on the left was the way they always used to do it. When they became 5 days past due, they put them in the collection queues. And then when we did odds and evens and we staggered them like this, well, we found out that at the end of the month, we got about the same result. But this one on the right, it only needed about 80% of the staffing to support it. So right there, we figured out how we can cut 20% of our staffing and still get the same collections result. And
now, are these automated, or you manually create these?
You manually create these, you save them as a template into a campaign, and then you activate you make it an active campaign. And then you just think of these as like filters that get applied to the queues. So if I'm a collector and I go back to my collection queues, I'll just go back to the queues. Like we can pull up somebody's queue. I want to see Adele, her queue. I'm not going to see anything in here that would violate the champion challenger template that I just showed you. So if it doesn't have a letter Q, it's not going to show up here until, in a future day when it's eligible to show up in the queue. So it's like a
Okay.
strategic way to filter out the queues so that your staffing is not working accounts that don't need to
Mhm.
be worked. And over time, you keep adjusting those strategies, those templates, until you've really got it dialed in to where you've
Mm.
optimized your staffing ratios, and you're still maximizing your collections. So I know we're out of time on this meeting, but I think I got through most of the important things. But
Yeah, that
I
was
guess I'll
really good.
pause there and see if you had any questions.
No, no, this is very thorough. I really appreciate it. I love the mapping though. I gotta tell you that the way you map that out, it just visually it makes it easier to figure out how you're gonna. Like you're saying on the staffing side of it, but the way you just roll that out, it makes it. I like it because now you actually can have a strategy behind actually how you're attacking the market.